Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me in California with the North American Spec Volkswagen ID Buzz. Oh, I'm so excited to bring this car to you. We've done so much with ID Buzz since the launch in Europe, and now finally I'm able to present to you the US adapted version. It's a longer wheelbase, bigger battery, more power, glass roof, so many nice little changes. Actually, in fact, almost every problem I had with the ID Buzz is now fixed for our market. So we've waited a long time for this vehicle. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the North American Spec ID Buzz in this video. In typical out of spec fashion, it's going to be a long one. We're going in depth. We're going to play around with the software, show you all three rows. Should be pretty epic. And a huge thanks to Volkswagen for letting us film this vehicle, a little one-on-one time with the ID Buzz here in California, so we can bring hopefully the most detailed video to you. So this is the North American Spec long wheelbase 3-row ID Buzz. And well, I guess let me just start by telling you kind of what we've done with ID Buzz since the launch. I attended the launch in Copenhagen. We made a few videos there. I drove the cargo version, I drove the passenger version, and also I took you on a full tour of their event, which was just really cool. And then I also took one on a road trip with Alyssa in Norway. We went on an awesome trip, did charge testing, range testing, a whole bunch of other things. And we learned like, okay, the Euro spec version works pretty well for Europe, but it's not really that well adapted for our market. The biggest problem is this thing's a brick and the efficiency isn't nearly like ID3 or ID4 or especially ID7 that's gonna be launching. So having a bigger battery for our market should make a really nice increase. And then there's also some drivetrain efficiency stuff that I'll tell you about. So just for reference, here's the Euro spec ID Buzz. You can see no side marker in yellow over here. We've driven a pretty almost identical version of this. Really loving the Thule roof rack on here. Looks like they have a little side tent as well. This one's on the 19-inch wheels. They got beach balls in the back, getting ready for the big unveil party that will be happening as this video goes live. But yeah, we've driven the Euro spec version quite a bit shorter, quite a bit smaller, and of course having that 82 kilowatt hour gross, 77 usable, great charging curve. Can't wait to see the new one. Is like one of the largest rear tailgates, like I mentioned as well. So this all pretty much stays the same back here. Maybe some lighting differences. We'll have to see. Definitely this one's capable of matrix headlights and all the cool stuff that unfortunately the US spec won't have. You can see it has the older display inside of this particular one. So not the new stuff, not the Harman Kardon sound, and a few other nice items. For example, no glass roof available on Euro spec ID Buzz, at least at this time, perhaps in the future. But this is a great way for you guys to see this one. They shipped it over, I guess, for this unveil, this party. And man, I love the ID Buzz in this monotone silver. I think it just looks super cool. If you guys remember, we took one on the big wheels on a road trip around Norway. It was really cool. And one of my favorite cars of the year. Great to see the Euro spec in the US ready to do some adventures. The Euro spec ID Buzz is really cool, but again, the US one's got a lot of changes. So what I want to focus on first are what are the changes for the US version. We'll talk about production quantities, dealers, how this is all going to work, and I guess best thing we can do is just start by taking you on a tour. And here it is. This particular blue and white theme is a US only color, or North American only color. I believe Canada will get this as well. And it just looks so cool and actually doesn't look that different than the Euro spec. The whole front bumper is largely the same. Really the main difference is up here is this light bar with this light up Volkswagen badge. This thing is huge. And again, in Europe, it's actually illegal to have a lit badge like this. It doesn't meet regulations, but in the US, we get this one. Really nice Volkswagen, I believe IQ light here. It kind of does this eyeball movement, very similar to the Euro cars. But a different lighting regulation, we don't get adaptive driving beam. We don't get the matrix function, if you will, like they get in Europe. So we get the light up badge, they don't. They get the cool matrix function, we don't. I don't know, pretty weird. All the sensors for driver assistance, which we'll talk about as well. This particular one is on 21-inch wheels. It's on the Hankook OE spec tire. I don't believe the US will be getting the 21-inch wheels at launch. The one we drove in Norway had these wheels on it. I think the US version is going to have 20-inch wheels just kind of like ID4, we also don't get the big wheels in that one. Based on MEB, this is now the largest vehicle you can get on MEB, and that's the same chassis that ID4, ID3, ID5, ID7, they're all built on this. And what's cool is this is really a showcase of the next generation of MEB. There's a whole new electrical architecture, new HMI, new software that really brings this into the next generation. So I'm excited to show you that. I'm going to show you the software, and we're going to go through, again, pretty in-depth. So just to continue on the tour here, again, 10 inches longer than the Euro version. By the way, I keep saying Euro and US spec version. This vehicle will be available in Europe, but it's really built for the North American market. It was built for our market-specific needs, and Europe will also have the option for an extended wheelbase. In the US, they're 3-row only, but I believe in Canada, you can spec a 5-seat version. They just won't install the 3rd row, but long wheelbase only for North America. Coming around the side here, in the back, you can see massive tailgate. Just one of the largest single-piece tailgates in the business. Absolutely huge power, of course. Here's the 3rd row. We're going to dive into all of this and show you how it works. There's also an option to get a completely flat surface here so you can put a mattress in, which is pretty cool. So we're going to explore that. And there you go. So it's basically the Euro spec with some adapted changes from the outside. The only way to really know which one you're looking at, it's going to be really hard to tell in Europe because both will be available. But at least in the US, if you see one, you can pretty much be sure it's going to be the long wheelbase. So what are the specs? Well, first off, range. The Euro spec that we drove had the 82 kilowatt hour gross, 77 usable battery pack. And in our 70 mile per hour test, it just didn't do that great. It was cold out as well. It wasn't perfect conditions, but somewhere around 150, 160 miles, if I remember correctly. We did that in Norway on the E6 on the highway. And that just wasn't enough for our market needs. We need bigger battery. We need more range. So Volkswagen hasn't run it through the EPA testing yet, but they're expecting in the rear-wheel drive version about 260 miles. I don't know for sure how well that'll translate to real world if they're running a 3-cycle or 5-cycle or what they're expecting, but 260 miles is pretty okay because, it's also a large vehicle. The all-wheel drive system should give you a range penalty around 8 miles is what they're expecting. Again, all expected numbers. And the all-wheel drive version will be very similar to like ID4. It's slightly different motors, but you'll have a permanent magnet rear that's always engaged, and then an induction front motor that's there just to supplement power. So you have very little parasitic loss or residual loss by having an induction motor up front. Basically no flux-related losses, and that's why it's only about 8-mile difference they're expecting in the drive cycles. The battery capacity is the big story here. 91 kilowatt hours up. That's gross capacity, and about 85 to 86 usable. I haven't gotten a full story on that, but somewhere mid to high 80 kilowatt hour usable. It's actually going to be the same battery that's in the ID7 in Europe. The US spec ID7, when we filmed that together, sounds like it's not going to get the big battery, just the smaller one, which is the same one that's in ID4. And so basically they've just added another module, I believe 13 module up from 12, to give it that 91 kilowatt hour gross capacity. So that sounds like a lot more range just for an extra battery, but there's been some other improvements as well to ID Buzz and honestly MEB as a whole. And the big thing starts with the new rear motor in ID7 and now ID Buzz. It's called the APP 550. And it's a permanent magnet unit. It's got new power electronics, new inverter, new electrical architecture, if you will. Very cool tech going on there. And the power has been increased over the rear-wheel drive Euro spec. Keep in mind, the Euro spec ID Buzz is only rear-wheel drive at the moment. And so that gets 150 kilowatt power output. So what's that, 201 horsepower I think it's rated for. This will be like 288 horsepower power output, something around 200 kilowatts. I don't actually remember the exact power figures, but I'll put them up here for you. But basically a significant increase in power and efficiency just from that motor change. And then the front motor, if you choose to spec the all-wheel drive version, not 100% sure if it will be available at launch. That will add some power and you'll get mid 300 horsepower, like 330 horsepower, well over 400 pound-feet of torque. Should actually be pretty spicy. The top speed, not that it matters, has also been improved over the Euro spec version. 90 miles an hour in the earlier cars, Now the US, we can go 99. So I'm really thinking maybe we should do a Spec ID Buzz racing series. That could be kind of fun. Better thermal longevity. It has, much more cooling on that rear motor. They've really optimized, putting water jackets around the stator, water to air cooler as well. Like a lot of cool tech has gone into this motor, so you can just romp on this thing all the time. Now, why does that matter for an ID Buzz? Sometimes you got to get the kids to school really fast. I don't know. For me, it matters. I like a big vehicle that you can rip. It sounds like this is going to have some great thermal longevity, so I'm excited about that. Before I tell you about the charging performance, let's talk the big elephant in the room. When are we going to get one? Everyone's going to want this in the US. There's no question the demand will be huge right off the bat. Even if the price is crazy. I don't know the price. I can't tell you the price. I can only speculate on price, and my guess is as good as yours. I think it'll be fairly expensive, but I'm not 100% positive. I hope they come in at the right number. But regardless of what they price it at, there's at least going to be 1 or 2 years where they're going to have just so much demand they can't sell them. And I was talking to the CEO of Volkswagen USA about this earlier today. I'm like, is there going to be a reservation system? Because that was kind of a disaster with ID4 where dealers would have them in stock and people were waiting on their reservations, and what's going to happen with the Buzz? And honestly, they don't know. And one of our big questions when we were talking to them was like, how are you going to control markups on this thing? Everyone's going to want one. You're going to see them 40, 50 over at dealers. And they're trying to come up with plans to work with dealers, and that's all kind of conversations that are starting now. I will tell you, Volkswagen wants them to be sold at sticker to their loyal customers, well, to everyone, but really to get them in the hands of people that want this vehicle. Enthusiasts, if you will, they really want to see driving this, and they don't want to see markups on any of their vehicles. Ultimately, in the US, we have really harsh dealer protection laws. I'm not sure what that's going to mean. All I can say is, if you want one, call your dealer now, try and get it in writing to get it at sticker, because it's going to be a war zone when these things come out. Everyone's going to want one. And the thing is, they're all built in Hanover. They're not increasing production in different factories. About 100,000 units per year globally for the passenger spec ID Buzzes. I don't believe that includes the cargo version. But again, 100,000 for the globe is not that many compared to how many people are going to want these things when they come to our shores. I asked them if they would, increase production and bring it to Chattanooga and maybe get it for the tax credit. And right now, those plans are just not in the works. So not sure what to think about that, but all I can say is call your dealers now and just try and get on whatever list there could be. There is no set, Volkswagen hasn't figured out what to do. Their intentions are in the right place. Will it work out? I don't know. So let's continue with the tour. Charging performance. This vehicle has, well, this is a Euro spec charge port on a US spec vehicle. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge of a thing. But we have a Type 2 connection here, 11 kilowatt AC charging, so 48 amps, just like the other cars. Your DC charging, again, we're only getting the large battery in the US, should be around 200 kilowatts. We've never charged this particular battery pack before. Again, it's the new 91 kilowatt hour gross. But based off of my testing on MEB with the 62 kilowatt hour and 82 kilowatt hour packs, is that the curve is pretty good. They love to show up to a charger dead. I mean, you pull in with these things dead, 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 and they're great. And in less than 1 hour, they go from 0 to 100%. I expect the charging curve to actually be the same as the smaller batteries, because again, they're just adding a module. We'll have to see in our testing. But that's actually a really good thing to get good deep charges on this, because it's such a big vehicle, because of the efficiency. I think the ability to have a great curve, and again, a peak around 200 kilowatts is very reasonable, means probably 0 to full in less than 1 hour or around 1 hour. And you're going to want to do deep charges on a road trip in this, especially if you have a headwind and you're doing big distances. 11 kilowatt AC charging, totally fine for this size battery pack for home charging. The charging port is in the back passenger side. Everyone's going to ask, so I'll show you this right now. Does it collide with the door? The answer is, let's find out. So the Euro spec doesn't, obviously, auto door, by the way. Oh, so close, but it doesn't hit. Very smart. Of course, they wouldn't design a car that smashes into the charge port, but I think that's neat. I guess I haven't shown you the inside yet, so there's so much to get into, so we're kind of bouncing around. Take a look up here in the front cabin, if you will. You'll see a new 12.9-inch instrument cluster. We're going to go super deep in that. New HMI, all that stuff. Steering wheel's the same. The gauge cluster in front of the steering wheel looks the same as the normal cars. And then take a look here in the back. This is where the big story is. Huge second row seats on rails as well. So I believe, I've never actually played around with this. There's a button here. Check this out, slides forward. And my friend Tolok, Charge Positive on Instagram, is filming me. Dude, you can put a car seat in this and move the seat. How sick is that? So basically the angle will stay the same, so you don't have to take your car seat out and get in the third row. That's awesome. Third row seats are installed right now, if you take a look, also on a rail. And there's also 3 rows of air conditioning. So if you look up on the roof, you'll see vents in the second and third row. Actually, one of my biggest problems with the ID Buzz in Europe was no second or third row vents. And what's really funny is when you're driving, they have the coldest air possible in the front. So you're freezing. That's to keep the rear passengers cool. Here you get second and third row dedicated vents. Huge fan of that. That is a massive win. Another massive win, I don't know how to actually put this back now. Let's see, here we go, and we're locked in. That was super easy. Glass roof, take a look up in here. That is so nice to have this giant piece of glass. And what's cool is, if I flip this switch, I don't know if you can see this on camera, hopefully it's coming through, it has this little layer that they energize, so it diffuses the light and keeps the cabin cooler. And we saw this on ID7, but this has to be one of the largest pieces of glass in the automotive industry that actually does that. I know you're probably thinking right now, but how much does all this cost? Again, don't know pricing, but they're pretty much coming fully loaded to the US. Again, I think we're gonna be really production constrained here in our market. So pretty much every Buzz that comes here will be dual tone, fully optioned. You can't even spec them base. I'm talking heated, cooled, massaging seats as standard up front, that big glass roof. Again, rear wheel drive is standard, 3 row is standard, just really nicely packaged cars. And I love that everything's gonna be basically ready to rock and roll with all the good options. Now, the rear has this really interesting window, which is not available in the Euro spec either. So the long wheelbase gets all the good stuff you want for the second row. Rear air vents and a window. You can't open the windows in the normal one. So let's take a look as to how this actually works. So I'm gonna hop over here to the other side. And you can see here inside, it looks like the window fills up all the viewable space. And I think I can hit this button. Okay, it's push and hold in this particular one. And it kind of slides out and moves back. That is like one of the coolest freaking windows I've ever seen before. What a neat thing. Because Tolok, if you show them outside, there's no viewable mechanism. You can't tell, it just looks like a hole in the glass. It's gotta be so neat. And let's look on the inside again. I'm gonna hit the window switch here. And look at this thing move. That is really freaky. Let's show everyone what it looks like from the outside with the door closed. Auto door, of course. So this is what it looks like here. Looking out the window. Oh, this is like the coolest freaking window I've ever seen. Why are we talking about windows on this channel? I don't know. But I've never seen a window operate like this. How cool is that? So sick. Okay, so let's open up the rear doors again. This particular one has the picnic tables in the back, but not in the US spec. And actually, I'm okay with that because these always feel a bit flimsy to me and I'm not super into it. I actually think it was like a crash situation as to why we didn't get it for our regulations. I don't know. Rear cell phone holder, just like ID4, you put it right there. So that's really great. The second row itself feels awesome. So I got vent controls up here on the roof. If you take a look over here, you'll see them. So I can go 70, 1, 2, 3. So I can adjust temperature and fan up to how many levels? 7. 7 levels of fan. And I can adjust all of that right here. So that's great. And I actually hear a blower in the back. So it's a totally separate climate system than the front climate is what that's leading me to believe. And all the vents come from here on the roof. So if you have dogs, if you have kids, you're not having vents come through the floor if you have stuff there blocking it. Really nice to see them up here on the roof. So all in all, really good. No center armrest here in the back. That's kind of a miss. And also no side armrest unless the door is closed, of course. But yeah, really cool. Heated rear seats is standard. Heated steering wheel is standard as well. Let's talk color and trim. There's a whole bunch of colors available and a lot of them are US specific, really fun, cool colors. The thing I'm actually more interested in than the exterior colors is the interior colors. So there's 3 interior colors to choose from. There's sort of a black and blue dark theme, which doesn't really fit the vibe, I don't think. That's not what I would go for. Then there's this one, which is like a really cool earthy tone, light seats. Really love this. And then there's one other that is a little bit more of a washed wood situation. And again, I'm not sure if I can show you all of them, but they're all kind of cool interiors. The other one, by the way, that I was mentioning is brown seats with yellow piping. How cool is that? Pretty neat. Like kind of going like old school brown station wagon vibes, bringing back like the 70s spirit. So there's so much more to show you. I guess let's keep diving into the back and the third row since we're already inside the car here. So this seat slides forward, which is great. One thing I want to check to see is how do you actually slide it? So it has a recline function here, so I can recline and keep it upright, which is great. I have a little bar that can slide on the rails, and then I'm curious how this actually folds. Ah, interesting. So this piece almost moves forward and comes down pretty low here. I can also pull this red strap that I believe doesn't actually do anymore. So I'm thinking the second row doesn't come out for sure. I know that it's locked in. The third row is completely removable, but you can remove the third row, fold the second row, and you're good to go. And I believe they'll have an accessory to make this completely flat again for a mattress, which will be pretty sweet. Let's put this back up. Let me climb into the third row. Let's do a backseat review of the Buzz. So in I go. Headrest, well, let's take a look. Largest headrest in the automotive industry right here. I think it wins on that, which is pretty cool. Air vents in the third row, absolutely love it. USB-C port in the third row. Cup holder, everything I could need right here. Honestly, like tons and tons of room. Tolak, would you mind lifting up on that? Well, I think I can do it because you're holding the camera. Let me pull this back, and then I think I can. So this red strap releases the backrest, but if you could pull the lever in the middle of the seat and push the seat back all the way, there we go. So now it's back and fairly reclined. I have so much room back here, it's crazy. So you guys are coming around, look at this. It has to be one of the most spacious third rows I've ever tested. And weirdly, on the driver's side, there's a big cup holder here, not on the passenger side. So I wonder what's over here. Maybe the charging port, maybe a door mechanism, not sure. By the way, both doors are completely power on both sides. Wow, super spacious, really cool back here. By the way, 2 sound systems on offer, HK 14 speaker, Harman Kardon, should sound pretty good. I haven't tested it. 9 speakers as standard. So there are gonna be some US spec options. Also, in terms of drivetrain options, I'll walk you through it again outside, but heat pump, not in the US is what it sounds like. Optional standalone in Canada. I think they're having some supply issues for heat pumps would be my guess. So let's pop out. There we go. That is fairly easy. No major complaints here about how everything works. And I really love that the seats fold forward to keep the car seat in, which is really great. Front seats, let me dive into how these work. Again, the US spec cars are pretty much coming fully loaded. So you get dual armrests on them. So if you take a look here, you'll see both of those. You have your massage function right here, 2 memory, and then of course your seat power moving front, back, up, down, all that good stuff. There's also a thigh extension, and everything is perforated leatherette. No leather in this vehicle, animal free. Absolutely love to see that. And yeah, cool. So before we jump inside and I show you the HMI and software, just to kind of round up the exterior of the vehicle, you will have, well, there's so much to talk about on this. You have a 91 kilowatt hour battery pack. You have rear motor. You have all-wheel drive as an option. And charging performance around 200 kilowatts peak. My guess is about an hour 0 to full, maybe 25, 30 minutes, 0 to 80, 10 to 80, something like that. Fine charging, nothing lightning speed, but I think it'll be totally usable on a road trip, which is ultimately what you want to do with this. You guys hop in the passenger seat, I'll jump in the driver's seat. And let's just take a look at this ID software 4.0. So in we go very quickly. If you take a look, this is the key, very similar to like the Euro specs that we've seen. You can open and close the doors right here from the key. I'm not sure if the US spec will have an alarm button like ID4 does, but we'll see. So this is the same exact 4.0 software that we saw when we reviewed the ID6, and it's just on a smaller screen, 12.9 inches versus, I want to say 15 or 16 inches in the ID7. It was pretty large. So what do we have here? A bunch of buttons, bunch of stuff, super snappy. You can see it's not fully finished for ID Buzz yet because there's a Golf in here, which is pretty funny. So overall, all good. You have your charging performance. You can set your charge limit. Again, 80% daily recommended. You can see one of my favorite things about this is your current rapid charging capability. It looks at temperature of the battery pack and your state of charge and says if you plug it into a charger, it will always tell you what your maximum is right there. So we've seen this again in the other vehicles. I think it's absolutely great. Route planning is in here, preconditioning is in here, so there's a lot that you can do with this. So if I go here to navigation, let's see, so range on map, basic functions, everything is super snappy. The map probably won't work because we're in the US and it doesn't show roadways, so a lot of Euro spec vehicles don't load like this. They just load the world map. But look at how fast everything is. I hit home, I can hit our app menu, I can go all the way around. E does the voice assistant, air conditioning. Let's take a look here. You have functions unavailable, and that's interesting. It probably shouldn't be in this vehicle because the ID7 has auto air vents, but this is all manual air vents. So again, not totally optimized for the Buzz yet. They still have some time to get this ready before it launches for our market. There's 8 USB-C ports in this vehicle as well. So you have 2 up here, a whole bunch in the back. There's a 120 volt wall outlet, I believe, underneath the passenger seat. We should find that before we go. Cup holders here in the center. This always felt like the cheapest part of ID Buzz to me, just a big plasticky kind of bulbous piece, but I do love the open floor here, the play pause pedals. Of course, very similar braking strategy to the rest of MEB. So you have a blended brake pedal. You have your shifter right up here where you can go very little regen to B mode, which increases the amount of off throttle regen. No one pedal driving here, but it does have auto hold, which will be really great. And yeah, so just cool little things that we can do here. The software is totally not ready for this yet, but Klima, yeah, love it. Also backlit temperature display here. So no longer are you fishing at nighttime to see everything. You have these sliders that are completely backlit for the sound system. Yeah, so I love that you can just quickly sync right there and lock in. You have your dedicated heated seat controls right here, which is wonderful. And yeah, I mean, I think as it gets closer to production, this will get more dialed in. There's still some time before this gets to production, and I'll share that in a little bit, which is kind of a shame. I wish we were a little bit closer to getting it in the US, but that will come. Again, shifter, windshield wipers, the steering wheel is all pretty much the same. Travel assist will be standard in the US, so you'll have adaptive cruise control, lane centering, all of the safety features that is standard in ID4 and now ID7 will be in this vehicle, which is great. Travel assist is one of the best driver assistance systems. It lets you lock it to the left side of the lane, the center, or all the way to the right, depending on the driving condition. So if you're passing a truck, you can just scooch it over, or if you're in traffic, you can scooch it over. It's really great. Love all of that. This window switches are the same as the ID4. So you have your front 2, which is kind of a shame. So I can roll up and down the driver's window here. And then if I select rear, I have to use this switch to open and close the rear window. Now I wonder if the trick will work like ID4, where if you push and hold rear until it starts flashing, I can hit the same switch and everything opens. So that works pretty well. And then I can also roll and close up the entire vehicle from that one switch. So that's pretty awesome. Just have to keep holding for the rear windows in this, the way it's set. So that's the shortcut around the rear window button. Love to see that. Everything feels high quality in here. A great driving view out the front. Nothing has changed from the Euro spec that we've driven. Of course, HK sound system I'm really looking forward to sampling. Love the roof, how you can open and close it just with a little bit of, I would just sit there all day and just do this. It's so freaking neat. The view out the back, look how big this thing is. You could easily sleep in here and do a bunch of stuff. The one thing I hope the Volkswagen software team does is make software specific to the Buzz for applications that are needed in this vehicle. For example, camp mode. In the Euro spec version, there's no way to keep climate on all night if you're camping in the vehicle. And I really hope there's some sort of utility mode or camp mode that keeps everything powered up inside the vehicle, but that you can shut lights off on the outside so you can camp in a parking lot with climate control if it's cold, for example, because that is a big miss in the Euro spec. Let's go run over and take a look at that power port, see if we can find it, and then we'll kind of wrap up the initial impressions on the US spec ID Buzz. Overall, I mean, it's just like everyone is so excited about it. By the time this video goes up, there'll be a live stream event happening which is going to be really cool to see. I'm not sure I'm finding the power outlet. Maybe it's just under here up front. I'm not 100% positive, but I know there is a 120 volt sort of vehicle to load situation that'll be available. So let's close this all back up. We'll get one last view of it, and I'll have to tell you the sad news, which is, yes, we're so excited for ID Buzz to come to the US. That's not the sad news. The sad news is, and I also want to fold the third row. The sad news is it's going to take some time for it to come here. We're talking Q3 2024. And so that's just going to be a shame. But the wait is worth it, because I think all of the adaptations they've made to the long wheelbase, the bigger battery, the more efficient motors, the all-wheel drive, the glass roof, the rear windows, the rear air vents, that adds up to a much more holistic package to what we're looking for in our market, which is ultimately, yes, it's going to be a fun lifestyle vehicle. That novelty will probably wear off in the first year or two, and then they're actually going to have to sell these things. And then it becomes, what's going to be the price? Is it practical as a family hauler? Is it going to work as a minivan? And the answer is yes, it feels like it will. So there's a little shelf back here I just wanted to show you. This can open and close. To fold the third row is possible. I'm not 100% sure how to do it, but perhaps we can find a way. I'm not, so there's a little latch right here. Take a look at this. And they fold right down by pulling on this little lever, boom. And then you can fold the second row, and then you can put a mattress in, and that's gonna be absolutely epic. So there you go, ID Buzz. It's closer than it was the day before. We finally know what we're getting in the US. Where's the little button to close the, oh, right over here. Hit that and move my head. It's closer than it was the day before. It's a really cool package. Basically, everything from the Euro spec is here, just more space. Again, 10 inches longer, a little bit wider, a little bit taller. It's all good. We just can't wait for it to come soon enough. So let me know if you guys are interested in getting an ID Buzz. Are you calling your dealers right now to get on the list, hopefully at MSRP? And I think it's going to be a mad rush to get these things. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on another one soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.